All right, so what we are going to be working on this week are color scheme artboards. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to make 6 different artboards for 6 different color schemes. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to find your color schemes. We're going to use Photopea, and then we're also going to use color.adobe.com. So Adobe has this color wheel, and it makes our job as designers really easy when choosing colors. Okay, so what you're going to do is go to color.adobe.com and you're going to choose your first color palette. So if you look here on the left, you're going to do the first 6 color schemes. So analogous, monochromatic, triadic, complementary, split complementary, and double split. Okay, and then you'll stop there. You don't have to do the last 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose your color scheme. So I'm going to click on, you'll start at the top. I'm going to show you some examples of how to change things. So if I click on complementary, it changes the color. So complementary colors are colors that are directly across from each other on the color wheel. Triad are colors that are in this triangle shape on the color wheel. Monochromatic are single colors just in different shades and tones. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Split complementary are kind of like the triads. They are not as far apart on the color wheel. Okay, so they're equal distance between these two. Double split is where it's kind of an X pattern with this main color right here. Okay, so these are double split complementary. So we're working with 5 color palette or 5 colors. So if we were only working with 4 colors, we would probably just have this X, right? So these would be split complementary. So colors that are opposite of the color wheel, but they're in the form of an X. Okay, split complementary. So it kind of just splits the color wheel. All right, so analogous colors are colors that are, I said that already, next to each other on the color wheel. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is come to color.adobe.com and you're going to choose a color. So this circle right here, this is our primary or our main color. It's got the little arrow in here. So we're going to use this one to rotate our color picker around the color wheel, and we're just going to choose a color. And if you slide it in, it'll bring the contrast down or give you different shades. Okay, bring it out, and it's going to change to a higher contrast color. Okay, so you're just going to pick something, a color, and then if you scroll down, every color has a number, okay, associated with it when we're working on computer monitors or television screens. Okay, so we call these RGB. Okay, so red, green, and blue. So these are the numbers that equal this color on our monitors or our screens. Altogether, this is the hex code that we would use for this color. If you rotate this ever so slightly, those numbers are going to change. Every single color has a hex code. Okay, so you don't even need to move it very much and it changes. All right, so just keep that in mind. So every color has a hex code, and we're going to use those hex codes to change our colors in Photopea. So the first thing you're going to do is set up your project. And we're going to start with the analogous color scheme. So we're going to name this project Analogous. Oop. And make sure your document is 11 inches by 17 inches and 72 dpi. And then go ahead and hit create. Now we're going to make our color palette down here at the bottom. So we're going to use our rectangle tool and draw out a square. So the first thing we're going to do is actually change the fill color and the stroke color. Okay, so to pick our colors, we're going to go back to our color palette on Adobe, and I've chosen this yellow, and I'm going to copy this first hex code. So I'm just going to select it and do Control C to copy, and I'm going to go back to Photopea, and I'm going to click on the fill, click on the color right here, and then click on the color picker, go to the hex code, and paste that number right in there. and it will change that color. I'm going to set my stroke for my color palettes to black because I want a nice outline around my color palette. And I'm going to simply draw out a square. And because I've already selected my yellow, it's going to draw out that yellow color. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and double click on this first layer to rename it just number 1. All right, I'm going to make a copy of this layer. So Control J. And what I'm going to do now, it's hiding underneath this first box, right? There are 2, but it's just hiding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my fill color. Actually, I'm going to go back to the color wheel and I'm going to select my next color, go to the fill, click on the color picker, and paste my hex code for my next color right here. Then I'm going to go to my move tool and drag out that hidden box and just bring it right beside. There's a very slight color differentiation between these 2 colors, so it's really hard to see the difference. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to rename this number 2, and I'm going to make a copy. Control J. I'm going to go to my color wheel, select my color, go to my shape tool, go to the fill, go to the color picker, go to the hex code and paste that new code right in there. Go to the move tool and drag it over. Repeat the process. Rename this number 3. Copy that. Go to my color. Select the code. Go back. Click on my shape. Click on my fill. Click on my color picker. Change the hex code. Hit OK. Go to my move tool. Move it over. Rename. And repeat the process one more time. Control J. Color wheel. Copy that color, go to Photo P, go to the rectangle tool, go to the fill, go to the color picker, go to the hex code and paste the number and hit OK. Go to your move tool, move that last one over and rename it number 5. Oops. So you just double click to rename it and then hit enter. Okay, so there are all 5 of my colors. What I'm going to do now is align these so they're nice and even and straight. So I'm going to click on the first one, hold the shift key and click on number 5 and it selects everything. Then I'm going to go to my align or my center vertically and it centers everything nice and straight. And then I'm going to go to my equal gaps and this is going to distribute each shape equally. Okay. And then I'm just going to shift it over so they're center on the bottom. Then I'm going to go to my text tool and I'm going to type in what color palette or color scheme I'm actually doing. So I'm just going to type in Analogous. You guys can change your text, your font if you want. I'm just going to leave it the same for this one. All right, so now the next thing you're going to do is draw out your artboard box. So when I go to my rectangle tool, my fill color is the last color that I used on when I created my color palette. So what I need to do, I can either leave it the same. I'm going to draw out my box. I can leave it the same. Actually, I think I'm going to leave, or I can change it. So if you change it, you just click on the fill. And now that I have all of my color palette down here, I'm just going to click on one of these. If I click through, it'll change the color. You notice it's changing right here as I click through. Okay, so I'm just going to use this one to start with. And then I'm going to go to my shape tool and I'm going to start drawing out some shapes. Okay, so I'm going to start, actually I want to change my stroke. So when you start drawing out your shapes, make sure that your fill color and your stroke color only use these colors in your color palette. You don't want them to use black for your stroke. So make sure that you reset those colors, okay? So we're only using the colors that are in your color palette. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to start drawing out some shapes. So I'm just going to draw out a line. And oops, it actually changed the stroke color of my main box. So I'm going to go back and fix that. All right, so this is my first shape. And then I'm just going to continue the process. I'm going to just start drawing out some shapes, and then I'm going to change the color. So go to my color picker and change the color. I can change the stroke for each color as well. I can give it the same color, or I can actually leave that off. So if I left the stroke off, it wouldn't have one. I can actually, let's do a different color or a different line. So I'm going to go here, change the fill, and select this one. I can turn the stroke off. So I just click here, and now it doesn't have a stroke. It's just a solid colored box. Okay, so another thing I could do is turn off my fill color and only have a stroke. So if I change this, go here, and then change my stroke color, I can click off of there, and now I just have a stroke color. Okay, so it almost looks like the box is filled in with the background color, but really it's transparent. It doesn't have a color to it. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this process. So you're going to draw out 5 different shapes just randomly on your artboard. And as you do this, you're going to see the principles and elements of design start taking place on your artboard. Whether you mean to or not, it just kind of happens. All right, so with my 5 shapes, I have more than 5 now. You can do more than 5, that's fine, but your minimum is 5. Okay, so I have 5 different shapes. I have 7 major shapes on my artboard. Okay, you must use each one of the 5 colors in your palette. So I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think I have my background color is obviously 5. Okay, so you can, after you've laid everything out, you can randomly go through and just change things and move things around as you see fit. Okay, so something I want to show you is how to change the stroke on your shape. So there's some things we can do. We can make our stroke larger by using this slider. We can make it smaller. Okay, I'm going to make it pretty big because I want to show you a demonstration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down this arrow, and this arrow has some different options for our stroke. The first one changes the position, where the stroke lands on your shape. So this one will move it to the inside, this one moves it to the center, and this one moves it to the outside. Okay, the next thing I want to show you are the corners. So right now our corners are nice and square, right? If I click on this one, it's going to give me some rounded corners. Let me hide these other shapes actually to kind of get them out of the way so we can see what's going on with this one. Okay, so if I clicked on this one, it's going to shear off those edges, okay, almost like they were cut with scissors. Another thing I can do is leave it a solid line. I can change it to dashes, or I can change it to dots. Okay, so there's some other options within these tools. So if I go to the dash, I can adjust these numbers. So this one is going to change, the length of my dashes, how long they are. Okay, so if I made it 7, it would make them longer. If I made it 1, it's going to make them shorter, make them look like little dots. I can change the space between each dot. Okay, so that's further apart. 1 would be closer together. If I click on corners, actually up here, if I change the caps, I think this is where, yeah. So if you click on caps, it'll give you rounded or oval dots or lines that are going around your artboard or your shape. Okay, you can adjust that as well. If you click here on caps, it changes how long they are. All right, so these all do something different for your shapes. So if you do the dots, you can do the same thing. So if I go here, I'm on the rounded, so it's going to give me circles. I can change how long my dashes are. I can change the distance between my dashes. And I can change if they're dots or dashes, okay, just by adjusting some of these numbers and clicking on some of these things. All right, if I click on the dot again, it brings you back to the default. Okay, so that's what that looks like when you adjust your stroke on your image. So let me bring this down a little bit. Try not to make anything go beyond that black line, okay? Because this is your artboard. This is our working space. I'm going to turn all of these back on. So an option you also have is if I wanted this one to not have a fill, I could just do that stroke and that would be fine too. Okay, so this would be my first artboard that I would want to turn in. Okay, I'm just going to adjust this first shape down a little bit. All right, so with my artboard completed, I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to File, save the PSD, and export the JPEG. Okay, so once they're downloaded and saved onto your computer, make sure to upload them to your Google Drive in a folder titled Color Schemes. Okay, this is going to go into your graphic design folder that you've created at the beginning of the year. Inside that folder, you'll create a subfolder and name it Color Schemes. Okay, then you'll submit, when you're all done with each one, you'll submit each one at the same time. So I'm going to move on to my second artboard. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to create a new artboard with my next color scheme, which is monochromatic. So I'm just going to click here and I'm going to go back to Photopea and name it monochromatic. Make sure all of my settings are still the same. Hit create. All right, so instead of drawing out your color palette again, what you can do is come back to your artboard. You can draw it out if you want to. If you want to, draw out those little boxes again and start all over, you totally can do that. Or we can copy everything and just bring it over and recolor everything. So if I click on the first shape on my color palette down here, and then I go up to where I created my main shape and select my text as well. I'm going to hold the Shift key and select that last one. Now all of these layers are selected. Okay, so they're a darker gray than everything that is not selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag this over to this tab that I just created, and it's going to turn blue, and then I'll just let go. And it drops everything onto my new artboard. So all I have to do now is go through and recolorize everything and just change this name. So I'm going to go to my color wheel and I'm going to select my next monochromatic color palette that I'm going to use. So let's go with this one. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to copy these colors. So Control C, go back to Photopea, go to my shape tool, go to my fill color, go to my color picker, go to my hex code, and just start pasting these numbers in here, just like we did the first time. Only I don't have to recreate those boxes because they're already there. So go to my color picker, change the hex code, hit OK. Make sure to go to the next layer, go to the next color. This is why I renamed my layers, because I know that when I go to the Adobe website, I'm on the third color, so I don't get distracted. So go to my fourth color, or D. You can either name these A, B, C, D, E, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to my color picker, hit OK. And so this is going to save you a little bit of time if you do it this way. And that's why I said it's important for you to have some time where you can focus on doing this project, so you don't get distracted and you don't have to stop once you get started. Okay, so I'm going to change my main color box to one of my new colors. If I click on the color picker, all I have to do is click on my new color palette, hit OK, and then I can change some things in here. So I showed you how to do the changes in the stroke. I want to show you another trick. Okay, so what I'm going to do is draw out my first box, and it's going to be this dark red, just like my box. I'm going to change this to a lighter color. So let's go ahead and go here. Remember, you have to use all 5 colors and 5 different shapes. I'm going to copy this shape that I just drew out. So I'm going to go Control J, and then I'm going to use my Move tool to just move it right above, so it's kind of stacked on top. And I'm going to get it as close to that one as possible. Oops, actually I need to take the stroke off of it. So I don't want it to have, this one I don't want to have stroke color. So I selected both of them and was able to turn that stroke off with both of them selected. Okay, so I want it to sit just right on top, as close to the top as I can get it. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how to use the perspective tool. I'm going to change the color of this top box to a darker color. I go to the fill color and click on the dark color. Oops. Be sure to go to your color picker. Go to this one, hit OK. So now they're two different colors. So I'm going to show you a little trick on how to give you a different perspective. So it looks like you're making a form out of your shape. So if I go to Edit, I can go to Transform and go to Perspective, and I can change the perspective of this box. I can drag it out to make it wider, or I can drag it in. Oops, you got to be careful because it's going to grab some weird angles, and make it look like it's going out into the distance. Okay, so, which is kind of cool. So now it looks like I have a 3D box, right? So it looks like it's a form. So if I didn't have this, this is a shape. Okay, so in Principles and Elements of Design, or the elements of design, this is a shape. When I added this extra little shape and distorted it, it became a form. Okay, so that's the difference between shape and form when you're working with the Principles and Elements of Design. So now I have shape and form, I have color with everything, I have contrast between all three of these different colors. Okay, what else do I have? If I made a copy of these two shapes and I moved them, oops, I have to make a copy, Control J, and I moved it above, and I repeated that process a couple times, one more time, now I have pattern. So I have color, contrast, form, shape, and pattern, all within, and repetition, which is the same as pattern, all within one artboard. Okay, I can change these colors, and then that would be my one design. Like I could go in here and click on this one and change the color and just adjust it to a different color. And that would be a very simple design. All right, make sure that if you do it this way, that form color is not the same as your shape color, because you need to have some distinction between the two. And I don't want to have these two colors be the same, because then I can't make out the difference between those two as well. So just if you do it this way, make sure that those colors are all different. Okay. And you can always change them, you can leave them, but remember you have to have 5. So that would be 1, 2, 3, and then I would need to pull 2 more, which I just did, 1, 4, 5. Okay, so then I would just move on to the next one. File new, create a new artboard, go to my next color scheme, which is Triad, and adjust my color and find a color I wanted to use, and repeat the process until you get to double split complementary. All right, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. Okay, so when you are all done, go ahead and turn all 5 of them, or I'm sorry, all 6 of them in to Google Classroom as JPEG files. And I hope you learned something new.